This video will explain that despite the fact that many of the ethical and moral issues raised by climate change are so obvious that even monkeys would get them, the press, NGOs, governments are mostly ignoring the ethical dimensions of climate change policy. Governments are taking positions on climate change issues which violate the most basic rules of fairness and justice. In the following video, you will see that monkeys seem to have the ability to spot basic unfairness and injustice. In this video, the experimenter will give one monkey a grape, which the monkeys like, and the other a cucumber, which the monkeys don't like. The monkeys seem to be able to sense unfairness.
The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again.
There has been a 35-year debate on climate change, which has been debated mostly in the languages of science and economics, languages which ignore the ethical questions. Some of the ethical questions are difficult, but governments are taking positions that violate the kind of basic fairness that perhaps even monkeys would get. The failure to spot the obvious ethical dimensions of climate change policies is a tragedy. Although it is sometimes difficult to say what perfect justice will require of some climate change issues, it is often obvious that governments' positions on these issues are obviously unjust. In fact, so unjust that a monkey would get what's wrong with them. And so even a monkey can spot basic unfairness and injustice. Even a monkey would get what is wrong with a nation that bases its response to climate change on cost to itself alone, and thereby ignores the responsibilities to not kill people, to not destroy their ecological systems on which life depends. Climate change is a problem that is caused by people in one part of the world, like the United States, and is harming other parts of the world, like Africa. A monkey would understand what's wrong if the United States only cares about its interests. When the United States was considering adopting the Kyoto Protocol, it did a cost-benefit analysis which looked at costs and benefits to the United States alone. Even a monkey would get what's wrong with a country that looks at climate change on the basis of costs and benefits to itself alone and ignores the harms to hundreds of millions of people around the world. Even a monkey would get what's wrong with a nation that sets a greenhouse gas reduction target without regard to how that target will allow the international community to stabilize greenhouse gases at state levels. Even a monkey would get why this is unjust. Nations must consider their targets as part of a solution to stabilize atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases. Even a monkey will get what's wrong with a nation that wants to use as an excuse for doing nothing some remaining scientific uncertainty about timing and magnitude of climate change impacts when there is strong evidence that catastrophic harms will occur, and waiting till all the uncertainties are resolved will make it impossible to prevent those catastrophic harms. Even a monkey would get what's wrong with a nation that refuses to do anything on climate change because of costs to itself alone and ignores the tremendous costs of doing nothing to itself and poor people around the world. Because the international scientific community believes we're running out of time to prevent dangerous climate change, even a monkey would get what's wrong with waiting even longer, which will make the problem worse, in fact make it so bad that we may not be able to avoid catastrophic warming. And so governments are taking positions on climate change which are obviously ethically problematic. Yet the press is not covering issues of injustice in regard to climate change issues. We all need to work to turn up the volume on the ethical and moral dimensions of climate change, and particularly in regard to positions of governments which are clearly ethically problematic, in fact so ethically problematic that monkeys might get it.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. The Paris Climate Accord is simply the latest example of Washington entering into an agreement that disadvantages the United States, leaving American workers, who I love, and taxpayers to absorb the cost in terms of lost jobs, lower wages, shuttered factories, and vastly diminished economic production.
The Trump administration's justification for pulling the United States out of the Paris Agreement flunks the most minimum ethical scrutiny because U.S. emissions are already contributing to killing hundreds of thousands of people around the world, causing huge suffering from droughts and floods and killer heat waves and intense storms. And the whole world must go to zero emissions by 2045 to limit the warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade, and by 2070 to limit the warming to 2 degrees centigrade. Trump's justification flunks minimum ethical scrutiny.